Welcome to the Mutual Success Podcast, where we hear how entrepreneurs and extraordinary sales professionals are helping each other, their clients, their communities, and maybe even saving the world. In this week's episode of Mutual Success, we talk to Josh Ramsey, a recruiter extraordinaire who was introduced to sales by a friend and quickly found his way as a raw rookie in Chicago to becoming a mentor for local high school students. He talks about how he went through his slumps and plateaus and is now touching the lives of families while becoming a valuable resource himself to human resource departments across the United States. While he takes his commitment to excellence seriously, I have never interviewed anyone who used the word fun more times. I know you're going to love hearing what Josh Ramsey has to say about being a mutually successful salesperson. Hello, Josh.
Hello, how's your morning going?
Magnificent as usual. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. So, what is your location, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm in just outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
Lovely this time of year.
Yeah, finally. This summer was brutal to say the least with I don't know if it was 10 or 15 days in a row that were 119. And so it was 50 in the 50s this morning. It felt freezing.
My mom lived in Arizona when I was a kid. And of course, the only time we got to visit was in the summertime.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, you're really uniquely poised at what I call the hub of, let's say, global commerce in the recruiting industry to benefit a lot of people. So, talk about how you got interested in this business starting from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, I got into the business via a friend of mine from college who was working at Career Builder at the time, and his territory happened to be in an area close by me. And so he was coming to visit a lot to visit clients, and he kept telling me one day I should come work with him. And I, kept saying that's not going to happen. Not anticipating that at all. And then sure enough, the day came when I asked for the referral from him, and I flew to Chicago for the interview. He had provided or facilitated a very great introduction to the city, organizing us going out on a boat with a friend, saying this is how we live out here, and that really enticed me to come out there. The interview went very well, and it was my first really corporate style job type interview, and it was really funny in the process. It was they were very nice to me in the fact that they organized all the people I had to meet with in the same day, just because I was flying in from out of town. In the very last interview, the individual asked me why I want the job. They were like, "This job's terrible. Why do you want this? You have to do all this cold calling, and it's going to be tough in the beginning." And it was funny because I'd never been presented with that, which actually, the reverse psychology very much worked because it made me more interested in the job that I could do that. And so, next thing you know, I got the job offer, moved to Chicago, and that's when my career started. And just getting involved right out the gate, coming in very disciplined, very poor after the move, and living in a very expensive city. That motivation to be successful there and the discipline that I had, or especially early on, was really what, first of all, made me more knowledgeable in the business, which also made me more successful. But it was just in that moment of the first kind of larger scale deal where you're really working with a team of talent acquisition leaders and building out a process to help them hire, and hearing the success stories of, just how happy the people were that I was working with about, the individuals they were bringing on. But then eventually, going to meet these clients and talking with the employees that were hired via the solutions we provided, and hearing how it was, life changing for them to switch careers to go into this other field. It became kind of a uniquely rewarding process. You weren't just selling a solution or a software, but rather you're actually changing people's lives. And I think that sometimes that gets lost when the difficult times, when you're worried about your number, especially early on in your sales career, and you're trying to hit that number and make sales. But on the back end, the actual result of that is really helping a lot of people. And I think you can lean on that in more difficult times, especially. But I think it's kind of a unique thing about working in talent acquisition.
So, when was it that you picked up this Chicago role?
It was in 2014, August 2014, moved to Chicago. And, I really, in terms of my sales career, I kind of have it, it was kind of a fun exercise thinking about this conversation, going back and analyzing different points, in your life and in your career. And I came up with three different phases of it, which is the start, which is when you come in very motivated. I was lucky to come in and be very successful very quickly. And when you first start off, it's back when you can't afford to take an Uber to the office. You're walking to a bus, taking a bus to a train, the Chicago Avenue bus to the Milwaukee Blue Line to get to the office. And you weren't able to go out during the week with buddies and go to happy hour because you had to go home because you couldn't afford it. And I think that starting off in that position really actually ends up being a great thing because you had to absolutely grind to get going. And then within a year, I ended up getting a few promotions and was in a much bigger role. And that's when I call the slump part of the career started. Is you get into that newer role, you think it's going to be just as good as the last one because you're absolutely crushing it. You have a lot of things outside of your control that go badly, like a company that is going under, and all of a sudden you're responsible for revenue and have to bring revenue in versus you used to only have to just bring in new revenue. So now all of a sudden you're brand new into this role and you're negative, $15,000 a month. So you're trying to come out of a hole. And I think that in that time, not only are you stressed and there's a lot of things that aren't going your way, you also have more money than you've ever had at the time. And so you get a little more comfortable and you want to have a little more fun. You're not as disciplined. And in that timeline, things kind of slip a little bit, or you're not as focused as you want to be. And for some people that may last a few years, or some may last 6 months. I know for me it was probably a 6 to 8 month timeline where you're still working. It gets difficult. And then the last phase I call the strive, which is kind of when you come out of that, or the resurgence coming out of that, realizing the world owes you nothing, that you are your own entity. You treat yourself as if you were a company, if that makes sense. You have to look at your budget, the revenue, the cash flow, and then you start making decisions as if you are your own entity. And how are you going to get to the next phase of your career, the next month, whatever it may be. And I think that mindset shift of really understanding that there's no one out there that's just wants to give you anything that you need for nothing. Like you really have to dive in and view yourself that way, and that provides kind of an intrinsic motivation from there on out, realizing that. And coming to that realization is not fun per se when you're 24 years old, 25 years old, and think everything is just going to be on autopilot, and you realize it's not. It's only going to get harder and harder. And then if you global shutdown and economic conditions, it makes it even more the case as you move forward.
Well, that was an amazing tour de force of a couple of different important parts of everyone's career. I want to go back and talk about the first role you were thrown into, and you mentioned how you got some guidance from senior staff. Talk about how they maybe gave you the advice to approach this really challenging role where you're dealing with it, obviously bringing in and as you said, cold calling, which is a part of every new salesperson's career almost, certainly myself, learning new skills, learning a business, and then dealing with what we all go through when we're trying to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very lucky that my friend that brought me to the company, he was, let's say, 3 levels above me in terms of hierarchy in the sales organization. And so me coming into the vertical business unit, which was to this day still one of my favorite jobs. You don't realize it in the moment, but the struggle with all the people, it's one of the most fun times when I look back on it. But coming into the business with him, who was already working on more complex deals targeted at more enterprise style companies, I took that mindset and approached, the smaller businesses with that same thing. Like my big question was, why not? I remember stepping into the role and asking my manager, why doesn't this company have X, product? And she's like, I don't know. That's a great question. And so then it was my mission. I wanted to sell that product faster than anyone had ever done in that group. And sure enough, I was able to do it. It was just because I didn't have any of that, had tried before or didn't think I could do it. It was always, why not? Like, until I, I'm totally unsuccessful or realize it's not a good fit, then we're not going to stop trying. And lo and behold, it was a great fit for many of the organizations. You just have to really dive deep, have a good, trusting, transparent relationship with, the buyer on the other side, and it has to be a mutually beneficial outcome. It's not like you're just selling something to for me to, get a paycheck. For sales to truly work and for deal sizes to actually grow, there has to be something that you're doing for them, and they have to see that. It's different for everyone. It may not be like, not everyone, as weird as it sounds, cares that you save the company a bunch of money. Like, that's not something that hits them personally. So you have to not only prove how it's going to save the company money, but the real thing you have to prove is how it's going to impact their life, the end user, the employee. One thing that I had a very real conversation with one of my first ever, six-figure deal was, implementing this system, automating some of these tasks, helping build a pipeline. The automation of the pipeline and re-engagement allows them to take off work at 3 so they can go to their daughter's soccer game. Like that type of value that you can bring to a buyer oftentimes matters way more than anything that you could do for the company, even though when we come into these roles, we think, but the return on investment is XYZ. Why won't these individuals buy the product? At the end of the day, they don't care. What matters is how you impact their life. And so
Right.
that kind of mindset and that approach is something that stuck with me. And, you don't ever really have there's a transactional sale and there's a relationship based sale. And the relationship based sale is, the better one because it leads to long-term engagement. And also, I've met a lot of friends that were previously clients that are now actually, friends in my circle from that. So it's just kind of the best way to go about things.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're using a combination of creativity, curiosity, and diligence, while fostering this great sense of community that really transcends, as you said, just an instant transaction. You One of the things that you emphasized in the most very recent video you did it 4 days ago about the team you placed recently. You talk about two really important aspects in your industry, but really any industry. Not all. Sometimes they're more important than others, but you use the term speed and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could please, talk a little bit about how speed and accountability can benefit both your organization and yourself, as well as your clients and their clients, and how accountability also improves kind of overall results. And then talk specifically a little bit more depth about this particular deal that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So speed and accountability, I think, apply to functionally everything, especially when you're talking about B2B sales. Many of these organizations, you may talk with them for months and not have a decision when you're trying to get something done quickly with them. And all of a sudden, when they do decide, they want to move fast. And just because you have had the relationship with them for 6 months, some other version of me out there in the world may have spoke with them last week and presented something that's very similar. And so at the end of the day, sometimes whoever can get it done the fastest will win the deal, even if I've sent you a gift card to Starbucks or a deep dish pizza from, Illuminati's in Chicago. Those things don't matter when it comes to actually implementing the service. So in today's age, speed is everything. And then in terms of accountability, actually being able to do what you say you do, I feel like the world has lost a lot of faith in accountability in general. Everyone says they do X, Y, Z, and then there's the fine print that throws everything that was promised to you, out the window. So for us, a big thing is making sure we meet those metrics. And to be accountable and to ultimately be held accountable, you have to understand what the baseline is. Like, you need to understand, how do you value success at your organization? Because we don't want to just blindly place someone and say, hey, this person made, 8 hires in the second month, which is great, because they just came in. But if those roles, may not be as challenging to hire. Maybe they were expecting the individual to make 25 hires within 2 months. We need to understand that so that we can hold our people accountable. And another thing on accountability is it's funny when you don't really have goals, you kind of just go through the motions. But when you have to meet a certain number, it raises awareness of that. Like, you get more creative, you work harder because you know that this is the benchmark. And so I think having that accountability, it's a bar to set to meet, but then it gives you something to be excited about. It gives you, like, even if it's an artificial, it may not be the case in recruiting corporate America, you have goals you have to meet, but setting up those benchmarks of success, it gives you something to celebrate when you do it. So it's kind of a psychologically good thing, but also in a world where accountability, I think, is waning, uh, actually being steadfast to that, I think, is very valuable, and people see it as a value.
You read my mind when you talked about benchmarking, because obviously we have to measure our results, we have to set goals. But you've, in what I've seen in my research about you, you have kind of a really nuanced and serious view toward benchmarking. So talk a little bit about, please, how you would establish a benchmark once you, evaluate a market and start to begin goal setting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing is to really get into the specificity of the task, what the project is. If you're hiring nurses, that's going to be a way different benchmark than if you're hiring salespeople or if you're hiring software engineers. Also, the market, depending on layoffs, but there's a huge pool of talent that's eagerly available. That's going to impact that market. But what we want to do is we want to understand what are the previous successes and what is deemed acceptable or accountable at the organization. And then what we will do is take our market data, because we hire for so many different roles out there, and we can say, this is good. If you would like to be, let's say a little bit above that, we can get there and we can help you get there because this company views, XYZ as successful. Oftentimes, we don't want to necessarily tell who the company is, but yet talk about how there's other places out there that benchmark might be higher. But I think that it starts with the position, the market that you're in, obviously, whether it's remote or returned office has become such a major thing here lately, which really makes it much more difficult. But understanding that, and then we have a great network of recruiters. We have a great network of leaders that are founders that started their own agencies, and we've all come together. And so really using that kind of teamwork and looking at other areas of business that we've all been in. We all like to meet at least once a week to go over those types of things and share relevant information. And so it's really a matter of what the client deems as successful, and then what we, through our collective experience, have seen. How can we raise that? And that can be through various means. Is it that the client needs us to do more outreach? Like, do we need to talk to more individuals to make more hires? Or is it a matter of bottlenecks in the process? Like, why is it that we submit a candidate, they interview with a recruiter, and then the hiring manager keeps canceling that interview, and it goes, 10 days, 14 days instead of a 48-hour turnaround time? That might be a place that needs to be improved instead of the outreach. So there's, I call it an assembly line. There's multiple points on the assembly line that need to be analyzed. And where is that point that is the bottleneck? Because that might be the issue, not the amount of candidates that are coming in. It just really depends. Like, back before there were all these interview scheduling tools, just like Calendly links and things like that, it was very difficult to just schedule a meeting with multiple hiring managers because of the fact that you had to go through, 10 different Outlook calendars, try to find all of that. But now with modern technology, it's become easier, but that used to be a very big bottleneck in the process, just to give an example. So there's a lot of different points of emphasis that we can find efficiencies. But it's client by client specific. I know I kind of went all over the place there, but there's a lot to unpack.
Well, actually, one of the great things about what you just said, as packed as it was, is situational awareness. And the situational awareness, you have your tools, but the most important thing is, how those tools help the team get together, communicate, and make the adjustments as they come, because we know we're always going to be facing different challenges, as you said, different bottlenecks that are going to require reallocating resources. And that situational awareness is it's at a premium, and you guys are taking it into consideration very well. One last thing about expectations is, how do you, one of the biggest challenges for salespeople when they're bringing on a new client is managing expectations, because, like you said, we want to honor what we've told the client that we're going to be able to achieve. But then once you get into real life, you sometimes some unexpected things happen. So we have to communicate the nature of expectations and performance versus expectations. How do you face that challenge?
Yeah, a few things. In the rare case that something does not go as planned, or is not, you're not delivering to the level of expectation, I think you have to make it right. I will say that one thing unique about our business today that I love is that we are privately owned.
Mm.
And after a few more acquisitions that I believe one might be announced this week, maybe next month, we're on pace to try to become the largest privately owned organization within our space. And when you have that luxury, you can make it right very easily. I can call
Mm.
my CEO at any time, and we can say, hey, this may not have gone right. Let's take care of it, whether it be offering some sort of free service or extending the service at no cost to make sure we meet those deliverables. It's very easy to do that in a lean, privately held organization. Whereas if you're at, a very large company, which I've been at before, you have to, get an approval from management to director to VP to, maybe CRO, whoever it may be.
Mhm.
And those things take, weeks sometimes to get done. And so it can lead to frustrating situation. And so I think that in the position I'm in today, uniquely, the private held entity makes it very easy for us to meet those demands. But I mean, even if you're not in that situation, I think that the sales individual, you have to really go to bat for your people, because in today's age, especially like the social age and how connected everyone is, like people don't forget. So you go to a new role. What if that person's in your territory at the next role, and you only have, when you're an enterprise sales rep at many companies, you might have 5 to 10 clients. That's it. You don't have 1,000 like you do when you're in a small business unit. So those relationships really matter. And so I think you just have to go to bat to make it right at all costs.
Um, That's great. I really appreciate all you've said about those challenging aspects of doing business. I see that you're part of the Spark student mentorship program. I don't know how active you are in that, but I know you have been active in that in the past. And talk about what they do and what you enjoy about helping aspiring students.
Yeah, I'm actually not active in it any longer. I was when I was in Chicago. It was a great program, and what it did was it brought individuals, grade school, middle school, from different high schools, particularly mostly in the south side of Chicago, and they came up to the actual on-site to the business once a week, and it was like a 4-week, 6-week program. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was really fun getting to have the students come up. We could kind of great activities to do with them. We might even just go for a walk in downtown Chicago because that was fun. One thing that I used to do with the students that I thought was a fun exercise was I would have them make their resume for, basically say you're applying to this job way into the future, let's make your resume. And so asking the questions like, where'd you graduate college? And it was a question that some of them hadn't really considered or even thought about. And so it was fun when one person was like, Ohio State University. And I was like, that's great. Let's start there. You're an Ohio State graduate now. And what did you do at Ohio State? What activities were you involved in? And, so piecing it out, and then, we really parsed out the whole resume, and then you print it off and give it to the student to have. And I thought that it was something that it's something that got them really excited. And I thought it was a fun exercise to do, just kind of, self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of putting that out there that this is what I'm going to do. And this is where I'm at. And the reactions from it, a lot of the kids were so proud of it. They were very excited to take it home, show it off. And so that was probably my favorite activity to do with the new classes when they came through. But overall, it was really just like hanging out, talk about school. How good are you doing in school? What are you struggling with? We might even do homework together. There were really no rules to it. Like we kind of just went an organic direction. However it kind of went. Each student was different. But it was a lot of fun. And we made a project at the end that was presented at the school every year, and it was a lot of fun. I also got to meet a lot of coworkers that I didn't interact with on a regular basis. So it was fun to get to meet other people at a large organization while working for a great cause.
And now that you're a more senior executive and you've got a bunch of people that you're responsible for, how are you proceeding through dealing with, let's say, cultivating them as great talents of the future?
For sure. I mean, I I love just connecting with individuals. So, really having, it's not like you're not here to be just like coached outright. It's a matter of tell me, what is it you think you need help with? Also, like, what can I do to help you? I'm not here to tell you how to do things. Just tell me how I can help. Um, it's always fun because it's an opportunity to basically let individuals show that they actually know what to do. Having that free form, they know what to do. Sometimes I think it's a matter of confidence at times of, am I doing it the right way? This job is difficult. It wears on you. You have ups and you have downs, and it's tough. So just walking through the process, having them share exactly what they need to do, and then building up the confidence. It's like, exactly, what you got to do. I'm a very high energy, positive vibes kind of guy. And so bringing it out, getting people hyped up, excited, and then, sometimes just getting on a call with individuals, and then breaking it down afterwards where that is a coachable moment, and also talk about and really highlight the things that you did well. I think sometimes it's as easy as just not to say you're a hype man, but doing that can really translates well into the conversation. But also, just talking with individuals outside of the company too, like my younger brother that's in sales now. It's fun kind of seeing him start his career off and be very successful in what he's doing as well. It's a different industry, but still it's the same concepts, and so it's a lot of fun. I like to stay connected with people and stay connected with a lot of former coworkers, and we want to help build each other up and learn from each other. And I think that's beneficial in any career or any vertical or industry that you're in.
Wow, awesome. Well, you did not have to tell me that you're considered a high energy guy. that rings funny. Out 1,000 miles away, 3,000 miles away.
Oh, that's funny.
But listen, it has been a delight talking to you, Josh. I'm really happy that you gave us the time today to go over such important aspects of a professional life from someone who has so much impact on different communities, and talking about all the values of building a community and working together to just bring as many benefits as possible to the participants in a transaction, the stakeholders and communities that they work with, and ultimately society on the whole. So I really appreciate your time, and we look forward to following your career for many years to come. So awesome. Thanks for joining us on the Mutual Success broadcast.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. This was very fun.